All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join. We really do hope that this session can provide people with some answers. I know there's tons of information floating around, and our goal here, our objective with this webinar is to answer any questions that you have about the stimulus package and what some of your options are, specifically some of the government-backed options. I guess before we get started, a couple of things I just want to mention. The last couple of weeks have certainly proven to be quite the roller coaster ride for so many people, not just in our industry, but really around the United States, all kinds of small business owners. So, I think it's really important to call out people like Kristen Snyder who have done an absolutely wonderful job kind of putting these things together. And it's really, truly a wonderful reminder of just how kind of powerful and innovative and adaptable this incredible community is. So with that, Kristen, I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your story. Even the last couple of weeks, I know it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you. So I'm sure some folks would like to hear the backstory as well.
Okay, so hi, everybody. I'm Kristen. So I wrote a little petition, as some of you probably read, that kind of went viral really, really quickly, way faster than I thought or imagined that it could have. I am a licensed stylist from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have a solo salon suite here. It's been open for about 3.5 years or so. I just woke up one morning and thought that we really needed some help. And the first person I wanted to ask was, well, not person, the first entity that made sense was the government. From that, I have started a website called Uniting Beauty, and its goal is to really dedicate all of this energy that we've created together, because we've done all of this together. This was not just me. I just wrote some stuff and you guys poured your heart and souls out to me. And so together, I'd like to move this forward into really asking for some more permanent protections to be put in place at the government level. And so we're taking sort of our initiative with the petition and pushing forward. I hope to be able to do that through some corporate partnerships and a lot of grassroots support and a lot of emails to politicians, but that's sort of the future forward of how this petition, I would hope to see it go. So obviously today we have some other people here with us. So from all of this petition writing and all of the attention it sort of garnered, I have been talking to so many people I never imagined I would. For instance, while doing a puzzle at my kitchen table, I got a call from one of Gloss News' CEO, which was absolutely outstanding. And from that conversation came this idea to really get you guys the information you've been looking for, because so many people have emailed me asking, what do I apply for? How do I get my unemployment? I can't find it. I don't know what PPP is. My accountant says I can't get it.
Right.
I wanted to get all of this out to you guys all at once, as much as I possibly can. So graciously, Gloss Genius and their partner, which by the life of me, I cannot remember now. That's you, Ed. Tell me who that is.
Gloss Genius and Beauty Industry Updates. Yeah. That's
the one I keep forgetting to write down. You guys offered to help me with this live Q&A webinar to get a lot of your questions answered. So on that note, I'm going to stop talking and we're going to listen to Ed tell us all of these wonderful things about how we can get help, regardless of what you may have heard, and the best ways to go about it. And then hopefully we can get you guys even more resources when this is all over, websites and stuff. So without further ado, Ed.
Thank you, Kristen. Well, first off, just a lot of crazy stuff going on over the last couple of weeks. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think, there's tons of information that has been thrown around. And I think for a lot of people, it's easy to feel kind of isolated or alone in this whole process, not just as an industry, and then you kind of boil it down to, on the individual level. So, thank you for the kind words. As Kristen mentioned, my name's Ed. I focus primarily on community efforts at Gloss Genius for both our customers, but also the broader beauty and wellness community. So this includes not just what we do at Gloss Genius, but also other initiatives that we have, one of which Kristen mentioned is called Beauty Industry Updates, which is an alliance between Sola, Samvia, Thriver Society, Hair Story, Simply Organic, and some other amazing reputable brands. And the whole objective here was to provide a safe, kind of neutral place for the beauty and wellness industry. So I think a lot of people felt like they were going to vendor specific sites for questions and answers, and it didn't feel like it's sort of a safe, neutral place for them. And so our objective here has been to focus on the highest quality information, and provide, curate all the best information that we could, and provide it in one single place. And in that process, partner with a lot of amazing brands like Uniting Beauty and the Samvias of the world, Solas of the world, because we know so many of these people are using these products. They're working in suites. They're not, maybe they own their own salon, maybe they're booth renting. So the objective here is to really create a neutral place for people to go for questions and answers. So I guess with that, over the last month, our team has really prioritized developing resources and tools specific to COVID. So this includes, like I said, the beauty industry updates. It also includes a partnership with a government approved lender to service all of these small businesses, because I think we saw that a lot of the system that exists today was broken in a lot of ways, and people were looking for a much more kind of like streamlined, easier process. And so our objective here has been to provide the highest quality information and do it in a way that is digestible for the community and for small business owners, whether you're in the beauty community or not. It doesn't matter. So the objective today, just kind of give you an overview of what the agenda is going to be like. So we've gotten a lot of questions about what the CARES Act is. So we're going to deconstruct it a little bit. I think what's top of mind, and the thing that we get tons of questions on, is specifically around the Payment Protection Program, otherwise known as PPP. So we'll run through the criteria for that, the application process, because I think with a lot of the traditional kind of methods, it's proven to be quite chaotic. And then we'll get into the Economic Injury Disaster Relief Loan, otherwise known as EIDL. And then another big topic that has been discussed and folks have reached out to us with questions, and to Kristen with questions, is around unemployment resources and what's available. A lot of things have changed since the CARES Act was announced. So we want to make sure we're touching on all of these things. So I guess just to start, everything we cover today really started with, or has been altered by, the CARES Act. And so the CARES Act a couple of weeks ago was signed into law in the wake of this whole coronavirus public health crisis, and then the associated economic fallout that we've all experienced. So the things that we'll be highlighting from the bill include the PPP program, or the Paycheck Protection Program, which is really aimed at helping small businesses, and then the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, which feels more like a traditional loan that you might be accustomed to. And then, like I said, we'll get into the expansion of unemployment insurance. So everybody's familiar with the traditional unemployment process and sort of how that works to some degree. The CARES Act has impacted that or altered that in some ways, and so we'll touch on that as well. Kristen, how does that sound? Are we anything else you want to cover here?
I'm super excited. No, I think that with the amount of questions that have been asked of me, this is going to be very helpful. I mean, the biggest thing I'd like to stress is that right now we are limited. We are incredibly limited in our ability and our access to get help on some of this financial stuff, because we can't just walk into a bank and sit down with a banker. We can't make appointments with financial advisors unless they're digital. And, I don't even know that I truthfully feel that many financial advisors even fully understand what all of this means either. And so I applied for the PPP through Gloss Genius, through the Crossover Bank partnership you guys have, and I found the process to be so much easier. Many of you are probably partnering or going through your own bank, but I actually spoke with a couple of people this morning who weren't able to get it. Their bank isn't taking applications. Their bank isn't giving out any applications, they decided not to go through with it. So I think it's really important for you guys to all understand that, you know, we really are existing in this whole process to give you guys information and to make it as easy as possible for you guys to get at least access to the application and get it sent in, so that if you can get the funds, they come to you, rather than, you know, going through these long, lengthy processes of, you know, going through a bank, a traditional style bank, that might make it more difficult and lengthy of a process as well. So I'm kind of advocating for this little partnership you guys have with your guys' SBA bank. I can't help it.
That is very kind. And like I said, I think a lot of what we've done has been a function of the feedback that we've gotten from the community as a whole, not just our customers, but the broader beauty and wellness community and small business community. And so that's really our objective here. So I guess first we'll jump into the Paycheck Protection Program. So this is what Kristen was just talking about. Kristen actually submitted her application, like she said. I think you did that yesterday, right?
I did. Yep, I did it yesterday.
And you found the process pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, that's not the case across the board. So especially with a lot of smaller banks, they're still processing applications and documentation by hand. So they're not really using technology in any way, which really slows down the process. So if you are looking for a resource that you can leverage, I would certainly recommend that you try to identify a lender that can process these things in a more automated fashion to speed up the process, because the reality is there's a limited number of resources that are being made available. So you want to apply as quickly as you can. So like I said, this is really on a first come, first served basis. So like I said, absolutely critical that you apply as soon as you can. Applications as of today are live for everybody. And keep in mind that, like I said, a lot of older banks or regional banks might not have these systems in place to process these things more quickly. So, who's eligible? Small businesses. So these are businesses with less than 500 employees. We've gotten a lot of questions around sole proprietors. So sole proprietors can apply for the PPP loans. Independent contractors. So as of today, you can apply for the PPP loans. Self-employed individuals as well. And then any business that was in operation prior to February 15th, 2020. So if you just started your business this year, there's ways that you can calculate this so that you can also apply for the PPP loans. Sound good there, Kristen? Anything you want to?
Yeah, no, that's what I want to stress to everybody for sure. Like, you did not have to be in business in 2019.
Yep. So another big question that we get is, what can the loan be used for? And I think more importantly, how can the loan be forgiven, right? So that's probably the biggest advantage to the PPP. There's an opportunity here for it to be forgiven. So just to give some high level, the amount spent 8 weeks after receiving the loan can be forgiven if and only if, and this is critical, at least 75% of that is used towards payroll costs. This is really important. So this is how you qualify for the forgiveness on these loans. Up to 25% is used on mortgage interest, rent, utilities, and interest on other debt. And then if you have other employees, you do have to maintain the headcount and salary or wage amounts. So these are the three criteria for loan forgiveness. These are really critical. So, as you're filling out your application, kind of think through this stuff. You want to make sure that you're hitting this 75% threshold. And just to get into some of the details of the loan, the interest rate on these is 1%. The term is 2 years. And then all payments are automatically deferred for a year as well. And if you're a sole proprietor or you're self-employed without employees, this question has come up quite a bit. You're using your total wages, and then the net earnings are what you're going to use to calculate your payroll costs. So you can still apply for this. You're just accounting for yourself. You are your sort of only employee.
Yep.
And then another key point that I want to mention here is the government will only cover compensation for an employee, individual employee, up to $100,000 annually. So anything above that will be calculated slightly different, or you have to account for that. And it's based on your average payroll from the last 12 months of January and February 2020. So if you haven't been open a full year, you can still apply for this. You just have to have been in business prior to February 15th, 2020. I'm going to pause here for a second and just give people an opportunity to ask questions. Madeline and Ernest, who are also on the call, are going to be monitoring the questions that are coming in. So if you do have questions, please feel free to submit them via the chat. We have two members of our team that are not visible right now, but they are on the call, Ernest and Madeline, who are going to either respond to you directly, or if there's a question that comes up that we believe will be relevant for everyone, we'll interject. But Madeline, is there any questions coming in? Are we good?
People just want to hear more about what is available for the self-employed. You just were mentioning that, and if you could just repeat for them the availability of applying for this even when you are self-employed or a sole proprietor. So what the payroll costs are for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a sole proprietor or you're self-employed with employees, without employees, the way you're going to calculate your payroll costs is essentially your total wages and net earnings. So you can absolutely apply. You're just using your earnings over whatever period of time you're doing the calculation for. Does that answer the question, Madeline?
Yes, I think so. And also they just want to hear about the PPP through Gloss Genius, which we're about to get into.
Cool. So Kristen mentioned this earlier. Kristen, do you want to talk quickly about the process itself and like what you had seen across the board?
Yeah, and I can also share.
You're on mute. There we
go. What happened when I logged in is it asked for, obviously it's going to ask you how many employees you have and what your wages are. And so the wages for me, like what I ended up doing to report wages, what I would have made in my own business was to take my income and basically look at how much of it, as a sole proprietor, how much of it was actually mine. So I deducted out my rent for the studio. I deducted out my general supply costs that I spend per year. That number you're left with as what should be your income after all of the things that you've spent money on is the number that I plugged in personally to this wages and salary, because that's what I end up taking home at the end of the day after I pay all of the bills I have to pay for the studio as a sole independent, sole proprietorship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everybody out there?
Yeah, I'll give people a minute to ask some questions. I also want to point out here, and I do have to throw this in, but we're not, so this is specific to Kristen's experience.
Yes.
We're not financial advisors, we're not accountants, we're not lawyers. So anything we're delivering to you here is either Kristen's personal experience and her sort of process.
I'm not held liable.
Things we've researched ourselves, but we strongly suggest if you do have like very specific questions that are personal to you, I would suggest reaching out to your accountant or a lawyer or an expert, or even contacting your bank directly.
But I mean, we report our income all the time, so everyone reports their income when they do their taxes. Everybody knows what their, so everybody knows sort of what their adjusted gross income would be, what they make at the end of the year. Like, this is the money I actually get to spend on my personal life, my personal bills, my personal fun, like everything surrounding that. That essentially, in my opinion, as a not tax professional, that to me is the income that they're looking to replace with the PPP. And then you can choose to use that in a various amount of ways, but 75% of that money you could potentially get must be used to pay yourself basically your income replacement.
Correct. Yep. And that's true across the board. So you in order for that forgiveness, for you to have the loan forgiven, you do have to maintain that 75% threshold, which is critical. And
will you do me a favor, Ed? Will you repeat the 8 weeks thing? Because I thought I saw someone comment about what does it mean you have 8 weeks?
Yes, so we had,
that makes sense.
So the amount spent 8 weeks after receiving the loan can be forgiven if. So in that
Right.
8-week period, these are the sort of thresholds that you have to maintain. So essentially, this is the way for the SBA to validate that you are maintaining a certain head count. You're using you're using these funds and allocating 75% of those funds to payroll costs, up to 25% on mortgage interest, rent, utilities, and interest on any other debt. And then, like I said, if you do have any employees, you must maintain that head count and the salary or wage amounts over that 8-week period.
Mm-hmm. So don't fire anybody. If you get the PPP loan, don't fire anybody for 8 weeks.
The PPP loan was designed specifically to kind of keep small businesses operating as much as they can. So which is quite unique, and I think it's pretty incredible in that way.
Absolutely.
So how do I apply? Unfortunately, the process with a lot of traditional banks has been an absolute nightmare. Like I said, many of them are still pushing paper. They're actually getting your documents, downloading those documents, printing them out, and processing it very manually. That said, you can go directly to your bank. The issue is many banks have actually capped the amount of applications they can accept. But more importantly, even if they haven't hit that cap, they're not well equipped to actually manage this change in volume. So we talked to one bank a couple of days ago that historically was processing 34 loans per month. They received over 1,000 in a 24 or 48 hour period. And they actually had to work with another partner to service those loans. And so this is something we're seeing with a lot of banks across the country. This is why we partnered with Cross River Bank. They're a very tech-enabled platform, so we're able to deliver a much more streamlined process. It's much quicker, it's much easier to go through the process, and then you have a full support team readily available by phone and email to answer any questions that you have, walk you through the process. A lot of the other thing to consider here is if you are like a sole proprietor, a lot of banks are actually turning a lot of businesses away because, quite frankly, the loan amount isn't going to be enough for them to justify it, which is really unfortunate. I mean, we work with a lot of sole proprietors. A lot of our customers are sole proprietors. They work out of a suite or a sole, whatever it may be. And so we wanted to also work with a lender that could service all kinds of businesses, whether you're a sole proprietor, you had 10 employees, 20 employees, 100 employees, it didn't matter. Couple other things I want to point out here, and to get started with our specific process, you can go to ppp.glossgenius.com. Like I said, you can also reach out to your bank directly and see what kind of options they have. Lenders do have different document requirements, but some common ones that we've seen, and these are actually what are accepted on the ppp.glossgenius.com site, are payroll records. So this could be the IRS Form 941. This could be the 1040 Schedule C, your tax returns. So returns from the last 2 years. If you haven't been in business for that long, all the tax returns that you have, other documents, the 1099 miscellaneous. So if you filed Form 1099 miscellaneous and are counting contractor compensation as part of your average payroll, you're going to need to provide this form as well. And then things like a driver's license, a voided check. So this will account where the loan will be. This is for the account where the loan's actually going to be deposited. That's pretty standard. And then bank statements as well. With this particular application process that we're highlighting here, like I said, a lot of organizations you submit your documents and then maybe somebody's responding to you and sending you an email and asking you some follow-up questions or asking you to provide some further documentation. We've gotten this down to kind of a 5-step process through our lending partner, Cross River. So you can easily upload all of your documents. We have the videos outlined. The process is all outlined. You can access all of this stuff as you're going through the application. We have phone and email support. Like I said, most banks are not servicing a lot of people anymore, or they're in some ridiculous backlog. Other banks require big relationships and or ton tons of paperwork. So we've seen, where they're literally just prioritizing their biggest clients, essentially, or they're requiring an absurd amount of paperwork to process these PPP loans. We knew this was a problem early on, and this is really where we saw an opportunity to help the community more broadly. So we've found a way to match you to a bank that can actually process these applications with. Kristen, how long did it take you to process the application start to finish?
Well, I had to re-download the Excel spreadsheet because I lost it and it got buried on all of my other emails. But after I re-downloaded the spreadsheet, it was probably no more than 15 minutes at most.
Yeah, which is, that's right around the average. So we're seeing like 14 to 15 minutes tops.
Yeah. I mean, it was largely because I was getting distracted by other things. But yeah, it was 15 minutes.
Which is easy to do these days.
Yeah. Stay-at-home parenting is awesome.
Yeah, I bet. So I think on average, we're seeing roughly like 14 to 15 minutes to process this. So we really do see the value. And because these things are finite, there's a limited amount of dollars being made available. We do see the value in faster servicing, servicing these loans to you or these funds. So you're getting them in days, not weeks, which really is this whole thing. These loans for a lot of folks are a critical lifeline that a lot of folks in the industry need right now. So I'd like to also just kind of reiterate here, this is open to any business, whether you're in the beauty and wellness space or you're a dentist or a chiropractor. It doesn't matter. This application process works for any small business. And like I said, we're really just trying to help as many businesses as we possibly can. So if you do know a business in the beauty space, a restaurant, an electrician, a plumber, please feel free to pass this info along before the funds do run out.
If I'm not mistaken,
Madeline, go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, other businesses actually had an opportunity to apply before applications started today. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as of today, proprietors, individual contractors, everybody can apply at this point.
Go, 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 people. Go, go, go.
Yeah. And it's, the other critical thing here is there's not tremendous amount of guidance from the federal government. Mm-hmm. And so you do want to take advantage of these things because there's just not a ton of information being made available and things are changing so rapidly. So it is really important to get ahead of this. Madeline, how are we doing over there? Do you have any questions? I can see you guys are responding to a lot of questions that are coming up in the chat.
So just a few questions that I think will apply to multiple people in the chat. One of them is, can you apply for unemployment and also these loans? And the case for that is no, you will only apply for the loans or unemployment. Another question that is coming up is about the business size. And for that, there is not a limitation on business size. You can be self-employed, you can be a sole proprietor, or you can have employees. And the other thing is about where you live. So you can apply for this no matter what state you are in through the PPP glossgenius.com. And you do not need a business checking account to do this. That was another question we had.
So I want to make one quick thing. So what's important to note is that, and we'll get into this a little bit soon, is that the unemployment thing is going to take a while.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to apply for things and then decide you don't want it versus, just sitting back and waiting, because there's only a very short window for the PPP specifically. And if it can get you the funds that you're looking for faster than your unemployment, which could take a long time, it might be the better option. It's also not, as far as I know, it's not taxed, correct? Like it's not taxed as income.
Correct, Madeline.
Your unemployment will be taxed as income, so you won't be making the full amount. You'll be paying income tax like you would paying on an actual paycheck paid to yourself or paid to you by an employer.
Right.
Yes, so the PPP loan is not, the part that is forgiven is not included in taxable income.
Yep. Okay, I'll let you move on now.
No,
That was all I had.
I appreciate you jumping in. These are some other questions that we got. Kristen, we saw these on the change.org site. These are also questions we got from users of the PPP application, the Gloss Genius application. We've also seen these questions being asked in forums, on discussion boards, on the Beauty Industry Updates site. We saw it on the PBA site as well. So I'm just going to run through each of these questions one by one, and I'll give you a response. So how is payroll defined and calculated? So for businesses, it's going to be a combination of salaries, wages, cash tips, payments for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, and group health benefits. For sole proprietors and independent contractors, it's going to be wages and net earnings for self-employment. So I'll just run through that again. For non-sole proprietors and independent contractors, businesses, it's going to be salaries, wages, cash tips, payments for vacation, parental, family, and medical, sick leave, group health benefits. For the sole proprietors, it's and independent contractors, it's going to be wages and net earnings for self-employment. And sole proprietors and independent contractors can both apply as of today. Another question that's come up a lot, Kristen, you and I were talking about this too, was what if I haven't been in business for a full year? That's totally fine. So as long as you've been in operation prior to February 15th, 2020, you can apply for the loans. You'll be asked to use your average compensation from January and February of this year. So again, if you have been, as long as you've been in business, on or prior to February 15th, 2020, you can apply for the PPP loans. You'll just need to average your compensation from January and February of this year.
And that would be a good opportunity for you when you're in the process of applying. If you decide to apply through the website that we've been giving you, the PPP Gloss Genius website, if you would decide to apply through there, it would be a really great chance to reach out to that live support and ask them for what kind of documentation you need to provide, because it'll be slightly different perhaps than what the base thing would be, and you'll actually be able to get a real live person telling you what you need.
Yeah, we had, to give you an example, we had hundreds of calls that we took yesterday and just kind of walked people through the whole process. So we're readily available. Another question that's come up, and Chris and I think we also talked about this, but what if I've already received an EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan? So you can choose to refinance the EIDL loan with the SBA PPP loan, and have the outstanding EIDL loan amount be added to the payroll amount. So again, you can choose to refinance the EIDL loan with a PPP loan and just have the outstanding EIDL loan amount be added to the payroll amount.
Which, given the interest rates, isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, correct. You can also receive both loans and use them for different purposes in the same period, or the same purpose in a different time period. Again, the PPP loans are really designed for small businesses, help with payroll. The EIDL loan feels more like it's more of a kind of a traditional loan that people would be more accustomed to.
Right.
And then finally on here, so PPP loan is not for sole proprietors, businesses, or booth rental owners. This is not true. So it's sole proprietors applications are actually being processed today. And you can 100% apply as a sole proprietor. So like I said, we work with a lot of booth renters, suite renters who are applying for the PPP loans. And again, all the same kind of rules apply here. The next thing, I guess I'll give everybody a minute to ask any questions that they might have. We're next going to shift over to the EIDL loans, or the economic injury disaster loan, but I do want to give people a second to ask any questions that they might have. Madeline, do we have any questions that are coming in that we should bring up?
So there's a few questions about, more questions about unemployment and whether you can also apply for the loans. So you cannot apply for the loans and unemployment.
Well, right, you won't be
can-
eligible for both.
Yes.
You'll only receive one. I mean, you can apply for both, but you'll only receive one. You don't
Yeah,
get
so
both.
you can choose to not accept the loan and
Right.
choose the unemployment if that's better.
Yeah.
And then some other questions coming in are about who can use the Gloss Genius PPP. You do not have to be a Gloss Genius user. Anyone can use this. Any business can use this.
Yep, it was really designed for any small business to use. So we have, like I said, we have like chiropractors that have their own practices, dentists, plumbers. It really, a lot of whatever kind of small business you're running, it doesn't matter.
Casey, real quick, I saw you pop up in the comments with a question. Have you asked that question in the Q&A box? It should be up towards like maybe the top right-hand corner of the screen. That's a good place to ask that question for sure, is up in that. I know we talked this morning, but I would ask that up in the corner, but I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be yes. My quick read of your question.
Yes, I'm seeing that question now, which is multiple. Can I apply if I have multiple sources of income? So the big thing about claiming your compensation as a sole proprietor or a self-employed person is that you just need to be able to have a way to show that, whether that is through a 1040 Schedule C, a 1099, or third-party source that tracks your income. So you can submit both of those if you have something to show that source of income.
These are great questions.
I've been answering some of them in email and social media for a few days now.
Yeah.
As best I can.
I mean, it's a very complex, kind of convoluted process. So
very much so.
There's different paths that people can take. Certain paths make more sense than others depending on the business that you're running. So, which I guess is a good segue into this EIDL loan. So this is just another option that was made available through the CARES Act, and it's the next government-backed option that we're going to dig into here. So, a couple really important things with the EIDL loan. So unlike the PPP, this is a loan that can only be applied for directly through SBA. So where with the PPP loans, all of that money is getting distributed through lenders or banks. The EIDL loan can only be applied for through SBA's website. Another really, really important thing to remember is this is more like a traditional loan, and it does need to be paid back. There are different terms, but it is a loan that there's no forgiveness here. So it is a loan that you need to pay back. So two big things that you want to consider before maybe you start the process here. So the EIDL really is just another loan to provide relief for businesses affected by coronavirus. And similar to PPP, sole proprietors and small businesses less than 500 people, independent contractors, and self-employed are all eligible. What does make it unique is you could receive up to $10,000 in this grant money before your loan is approved. It is not super clear how you qualify for that 10K. So I do want to point that out. The interest rates on this is just under 4%, so 3.75%. And like I said, these are not distributed through a lender like the PPP, so you have to apply through these on the SBA.gov website. And in addition, this can take quite a while. So the feedback is 3 weeks, but I can tell you that from what we're seeing, it's well over. It's going to be. It appears to be like it's going to be well over 3 weeks here.
I think I applied a couple of weeks ago. I think it's been about 2 since I applied for it, and I haven't heard anything yet. Yeah,
I think that's pretty standard at this point. I haven't heard or seen anything sub 3 weeks. So I'm sure there's a couple of examples, but as a whole, it's SBA is processing a lot of stuff right now. So like I said, the timing on this is really undetermined. The feedback was 3 weeks, but there's an influx of applications that SBA is processing, so this can take quite a while. just want to summarize, because these are two really big programs. I just kind of wanted to point these out side by side and provide people with a bit of a summary and just highlight a few things about the EIDL and the PPP loans. So like Madeline said, you can apply for both of these loans. Costs from the first 8 weeks after receiving the PPP are forgivable if you maintain that 75% threshold. If you maintain that 75% threshold, and if you do have employees, you're maintaining that same headcount. This is designed more as like short-term support. So, small businesses that are looking for some help with payroll in the interim or the near term. The PPP loan, if it's not forgiven, must be repaid in 2 years. The interest rate on it is 1%, which is pretty low. If you do want to secure funds for the longer term and take advantage of these interest rates, the EIDL loan is a decent option. And the term on this loan is 30 years. It's obviously at a higher interest rate. And like I said, the application is only available through SBA's website. So it's being processed a bit slower. They're not able to distribute it to a variety of lenders or a network of lenders. Another big topic of discussion has been unemployment benefits and resources. So I think everybody is familiar at a high level with unemployment insurance. A lot of the core requirements and the way it's designed it's still very state specific. So that's something I really want to point out here. If unemployment is an option that you're exploring, I strongly suggest that you go to your state's unemployment insurance website, and we'll share a lot of this information after the webinar, but we've gotten tons of questions on this topic. It truly is state specific. So, there's things that have changed with the CARES Act, and we're going to highlight some of those changes and how it's impacted unemployment across the board. But when you get into the weeds, it truly is state specific, and how it's distributed, it's all state specific. And I believe most states at this point are eligible, but there are a couple of states that are not yet. Kristen, I think you mentioned Michigan is still.
So most states, so the states that have been mandated to close, specifically to close salons, for instance,
Yep.
if you've been affected by COVID and your business has been closed by your state, stay home. In Michigan, we're calling it the stay home, stay safe order.
Yep.
But the idea is that if your business has been affected, then you can claim unemployment. The problem is that there's some difficulty in communication between the federal government, which rolled this out, and each state specifically. And so while we're technically eligible for unemployment here in Michigan, there's no way for us to apply as self-employed people yet. So on our state website, for instance, there's an update box that says check back in a matter of days for an application process, something to that effect. It's not that.
Yep.
But this is brand new. We were saying earlier, the very definition of unprecedented is this exact circumstance in our world right now. And so because we've never been able to do this before, there's a lot of people scrambling to make this possible on the government side of things. I truly believe each state is working as hard as they can to make this possible for us. It's just something they have no systems in place for how to do yet. And they're not getting the guidance that they need as quickly as they need it. So it's really just a matter of taking your time and being patient, which sucks.
Yeah.
Patient right now just sucks. Just call it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I think a lot of these things didn't exist only a couple of weeks ago, and the scale we're talking about here is like mind-boggling. And so, even I can tell you, lenders and banks, regardless if they're equipped for this or not, they're trying to move as quickly as they can. And so, oftentimes it's maybe even out of their hands a bit. So, after they process your application, they might run into a snag on their side with SBA, for example. So there are different sort of tiers to this whole thing. Patience is certainly required, unfortunately. And I think the best thing to do is reach out to people in your community who are going through the process as well. Chat with trusted advisors and resources just to get feedback on what your options are. And then, unfortunately, we just all need to exercise some patience here.
The one thing I would recommend, because I know that a lot of us are in this position, and this is me ad-libbing my entire I'm gonna ad-lib for a minute, pardon me. I can just tell you what I've done. So the idea is that we all have bills to pay and we need the money to come in now. I would encourage you guys all to reach out to every single one of the people that you owe money to and ask them what their plan is for what's happening right now, because I don't think there's a single creditor out there right now that isn't offering some sort of relief in some version, because they're not, I mean, you just don't have the money. They might as well help, at the very least, they might as well help us. And everyone's in this position. The downside is that there are still the necessities for some of us to pay rent, because we have to all try to remember that the people we're paying rent to also have bills to pay and are waiting for
100%
the same amount of money to come in for them too.
Yeah.
So try to be patient with the fact that you have to pay rent when you don't have it, because you're actually helping someone else be alive and survive and pay their bills as well. So I know that's hard, but it's true. Unfortunately, it's the way that the hierarchy of our society works right now, and we're all waiting for this to come through. All of us.
Well
so
said.
call everyone.
Sure. Everybody's impacted by this in some way or another. It's a great point. So back, I guess just to kind of segue here to some of the unemployment updates. So these are things that have changed about unemployment insurance in the U.S. So there's an additional $600 to weekly benefits from the government. So this is a big change. Eligibility has also expanded. So your employer permanently, some of the criteria here. So if your employer permanently or temporarily laid you off due to coronavirus measures, you're eligible. Your employer reduced your work hours due to coronavirus measures. You are self-employed and have lost income due to coronavirus measures. Maybe you're quarantined. You're unable to work due to the risk of exposure to the virus. You can't work because you're caring for another family member. I personally know a few people that this is the case for. And the timeline, another big thing that I want to point out here is the timeline has been extended. So there's an additional 13 weeks of benefits for people who are still unemployed after their state benefit period runs out. This is really important. Like we said earlier, I know there's still some states that are maybe dragging their feet a little bit, but due to the vast effects of COVID, most people are now eligible for unemployment, including self-employed individuals.
Mm-hmm. Finally.
So how much will people receive? There's a variety of ways. Like I said, this is very state specific, but there's a lot of really helpful tools out there that are available for free. One tool that we recommend to a lot of people is from Zippia, and we'll share this link out later. I'm sorry, the sun just appeared out of nowhere. And is this resource called Zippia, but they put together an unemployment calculator that takes into account the changes from the CARES Act. So it'll include this additional $600. So you can go there, plug in your salary or what do you make on an annual basis, what state do you live in, how many children do you have, and then you can calculate the benefits there. A lot of people ask, well, how do I apply? Again, this is very state specific. So we'll share out links to each of the 50 states, but it truly is very state specific. There's a lot of different dynamics, requirements, qualifications, things like that. So I would strongly suggest seeking out your state's website. Each state has a unemployment insurance website with tons of information on it, and every single site is covering the COVID stuff. So
yeah, all of them.
They'll have updates before anybody else. Madeline, how are we doing over there?
of questions coming in, and I'm going to look at a few of them first, and then I'll voice them in a little bit.
Cool. So I know we're running up on time here. A couple of things I wanted to highlight before we jump are just a couple of online resources that you guys can access today. So I'm going to switch over actually to my browser window. Give me 1 second. Kristen, can you see my screen again?
I can. That was a very big jump.
This is the, you can see the PPP website, right?
I can. Yep, that's the one.
So this is the ppp.glossgenius.com website that we talked about. This application is live and ready to go. We're processing stuff today. You can go to this site and apply for the PPP through an SBA approved bank, Cross River Bank, that we're partnering with. We have phone and email support readily available. So we're actually walking people through the process itself. Pretty straightforward site to use here. This is live now, so you can go to it. If you do have questions, I'll provide my email address afterwards as well. So you feel free to reach out to me directly or Kristen.
And you're the best. That's the best thing you've said all day.
Another platform I want to point out here is the Beauty Industry Updates site. So this is a collaborative place for beauty and wellness professionals specifically. I think what we found was there's tons of content out there, but none of it was designed or written for the beauty and wellness community. And so this is an alliance between Sam Via, Thriver Society, Gloss Genius, Sola, Simply Organic, and Hair Story. And the objective here is to provide a safe and neutral place for people to go and seek out information, resources, ask questions. So there's actually a hotline in here. You can submit, requests to schedule a call with somebody, and they'll walk you through, like, what are some of your options? How can we help? Provide state-by-state guidance on loans, assistance with forecasting and budgeting finances, connect with other members of the broader community as well. There's also links to for information on the PPP program, the EIDL program on here that you can find. Kristen launched an amazing resource called unitingbeauty.org. On here, you can find all kinds of government resources, including the PPP program. Kristen has made herself readily available. She's answering questions all day and has become incredibly knowledgeable on all things government-backed options. Finance options here, or lending options. A lot of industry efforts that she's working on as well. Kristen, do you want to talk a little bit about, just in general, like some of the things that you're working on moving forward?
Absolutely. So as many of you probably saw, about 10-ish days ago or so, I was contacted by the Professional Beauty Association. They are funding through the use of donations. They are funding a COVID-19 relief fund. Their goal is to issue 5,000 stylists, well, not really stylists, licensed professionals. They have a list of what they're doing, but their goal is to issue 5,000 digital American Express cards in the amount of $500, which means that they need a fund of like 2.5 million or something to do this. I don't know, the math is a little hazy for me trying to do that really quickly. The reason they contacted me was because in the beginning of their creation of this, they didn't have a lot of corporate buy-in to help fund this amount. And so they looked at it from the perspective of, if everybody who signed this petition gave a couple of dollars into the fund, then that would pretty much cover everything they needed and then some. So that's sort of been the message I've been trying, and at times not doing the best job explaining, because doing it through texting and email updates is challenging. But now I have you all as a captive audience, so I can tell you. So that's been the goal, is to try and get this thing funded, because they are issuing the money directly back into the hands of people. All of their information can be found on the website you guys see on the screen right now. That link is also on Uniting Beauty's financial resource page under the industry efforts. I'm going to mess this up, even though I was actually a graduate. The Horst Reichelbacher Foundation is also giving out $1,000 grants to people in our industry. It's a little bit, I'm going to say it's a little bit more invasive a process, but I don't know, because to be honest with you, I haven't applied for either of them. My own morals keep me away from doing it. I want you guys to have it, so I'm just staying clear of it. But I know that you have to like write an essay about how you change lives, because it's from Beauty Change Lives. They partnered with the Horst Reichelbacher Foundation for that. And I'm hoping that there will be more. I'm really hoping to hear from a few different people I've been speaking with offline. I can't talk about it right now, but I'm really hoping that there will be some more resources offered soon, that we can not just have to wait it out with all the rest of the small businesses across the country. I'm looking forward to hearing about PBA's sort of new lobbying efforts and some other things that are happening. So that's kind of where we're at so far. Like I said, the biggest thing, and this is the other thing I wanted to add on that site, was to make sure that you really reach out to your lenders to try and get some accommodations made for you, because I think that they don't have much of a choice but to make them right now. And so it's better for them to set the terms of those accommodations than to just have a whole bunch of us not pay our bills, you know? So,
right. Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Yeah,
it is, and stay as informed as you can. I mean, it's really panic inducing and kind of scary to watch the news, but there's a lot of things being discussed right now about extending these programs. There's a sort of a back and forth again happening to extend some of these sort of worker bailout programs. So it's really important that we continue fighting for ourselves. So you are your best voice and your best advocate. I would encourage all of you to find out who your legislators are and write them to get them to support what you need, because they want to hear from their constituents, and they need to be able to take our voices and our personal stories to those meetings and to those committees and make clear that it's not just about a package deal for a whole unnamed workforce, that there is, you know, a 38-year-old stylist in Ann Arbor, Michigan, who could really use unemployment right now instead of like 12 weeks from now, or could use an additional stimulus check. So, you know, they need to hear those stories. They need to put a face and a name to what's happening to make this happen faster. So reach out to your government. Reach out to your government. Do it. It's good for everybody.
You're 100% right. Very, very well said. I appreciate you putting everything together today. I think it's absolutely critical. These are the types of things I think the community as a whole has been yearning for, and it just took some people stepping up to do it. The reality is, I think the beauty and wellness community contributes a massive amount to the U.S. economy, and sometimes that maybe gets overlooked. And so I think these are really, really important things that we're shedding light on. Hopefully we can all kind of combine to continue delivering really high quality education and information to the community, so that nobody feels like they're going through this alone or feels isolated in any way. There's so many people, there's so many pockets of people throughout the United States. So it's just a matter of connecting with those people or seeking out some of these resources. This is my personal email address up here. This is Kristen's personal email address. If you ever have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, point you to resources, guide you through some of the stuff. We can jump on a call with you, whatever it may be. Happy to help in whatever way that we can. So Kristen, thank you so much. This was amazing. Hopefully we were able to help some people out today. I look forward to continuing to work with you. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, this is our contact info. A lot more stuff. We're probably going to continue working on some stuff from an education standpoint as well. So keep an eye out for that. And then Kristen still has her petition going. So Kristen, why don't you send it off here?
All right, guys. Well, I don't know. I would encourage you to visit the website. Please visit the unitingbeauty.org website. I am trying very hard to transition everyone to that for updates. There's a link to sign up for an actual email, when I update it. I'm trying to move everybody there because, as some of you may know, I've had some issues with change.org. I've sort of made that beef very public, but if any of you have any questions about that drama, you're welcome to contact me as well. So I'm really trying to get this into a full movement for us all, because we deserve it. Because we deserve to have to be taken care of the way we take care of everybody else all the time. So please come to the website, unitingbeauty.org. Please, 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 please.
Yep. Unitingbeauty.org. Email is unitingbeauty@gmail. And then I'm Ed at Gloss Genius. And then if you want to get started on the application, it's just ppp.glossgenius.com. But yeah, we're readily available if you have any questions. Thanks so much for joining. I know we're running a little over, so I appreciate you sticking around too. This was recorded as well. So if you have friends or small business owners that you want to share this with, Kristen's going to send this out to everyone so you can watch the replay later on. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Friday. If you're doing social distancing, try to enjoy it as much as you can. And have a good weekend, everyone.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.